Hello, and welcome to Heart Containers, a Nintendo podcast where every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday we discuss the latest Nintendo news. I'm your host, Rami Fawaz, and this is the episode for Wednesday, April 3rd. Congratulations, you survived April Fool's Day. I want to know if you guys got fooled by any of the tricks or jokes going around the internet. There were a couple of really good ones, to be honest, this year. One about a mobile Splatoon game for adults, and another one by IGN making fun of Nintendo Directs and the need for us Nintendo Switch owners to play almost every single game on the Nintendo Switch. We're going to talk about that today. Those are a couple of my favorite April Fool's jokes that occurred on April 1st, and we're going to kind of do like a roundup of what happened within the world of video games, specifically Nintendo, when it involves April Fools. Then we have some news about Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice. It finally got a release date and a price. I'm going to go into that, talk about that game for a little bit. Persona 5S. We have news. We have confirmation that that game does exist. I believe it was still a rumor that Persona 5S was a thing. We only got confirmation that Persona 5R existed, but now we finally know that Persona 5S exists. I'm going to talk about that, explain what that means for any of you guys who haven't been following this Persona 5 saga that's been going on since December of last year. And finally, a story about Pokemon Sword and Shield and how it could still potentially be using the capturing mechanics from the Let's Go games that released in November, I believe, of last year. We saw video footage from Pokemon Sword and Shield from that reveal direct, and it clearly showed that there was going to be random battles instead of what we got in Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, but there are some signs pointing in the opposite direction. So I'm going to get into all of that and a little bit more in today's Nintendo News Report.
Well, the wait is over. This is Nintendo DS. My body is ready.
We would like to play.
A way to make 3D games a reality, and it's called the Wii U Game Pen.
All right, let's start by talking about April Fools. That was on Monday, and on Monday we got the chance to talk about a few of the early pranks spreading around the internet, including a square Kirby and a round QB from the Box Boy franchise. But as you probably expect, that was just the beginning. The show launched pretty early in the morning, so there was plenty of time for new jokes to make their way into the hearts and minds of Nintendo owners, and boy, did that happen. Fake hardware, game announcements galore, basically what you would expect for the most part. And I'm not going to go into every single joke, but there were two favorites that I really want to share with you guys in case you did not know about them. One was a trailer for a new mobile game called Splatoon Island. It's a dating simulator in the world of Splatoon, where the tagline was, "While the kids are out playing turf war, the adults are busy playing a different game." Ooh, God, it's just such a stupid concept, but I love it. The trailer, it was very convincing. It's fully animated. It's like 2 minutes long. It has gameplay of Inklings running around in bikinis, and romancing each other. There are mini games that you can play. There were different locations that people were running around. It was set like on a beach with hotels and places to eat and walk around and play volleyball. It was nuts. It was really insanely well done, and I props to that. I thought it just gave me a good laugh. I could not tell you, it was just so impressive to see how much effort was put into a joke like this. I always appreciate it when people go out of their way just to make a smile, and that definitely did. It reminded me a lot of that Dead or Alive beach game that's coming out. Is it called Dead or Alive Island? That's not true. Dead or Alive, a traditional fighting game, but usually known for having or portraying women in a pretty scandalous manner. So they have a spin-off series where Dead or Alive women are on an island, and it's pretty much all about what you would expect it to be. And this reminded me of that, but with Splatoon, with Nintendo IP. So it was a pretty good one. If you haven't checked out that teaser, that trailer, you should, because they put a lot of work into it and it really shows. The second one, which I think is my favorite, it's going to be one of my favorites for a long time. I don't know if anyone's really going to be able to top it. IGN, they do a really good job when it comes to April Fools. Of course, they're one of the biggest, if not the biggest, video game website on the internet, so they have the clout, they have the resources to pull something big off, and they usually do something cool. I mean, they're not always as successful as they are, but this year was no different. And this year, honestly, was probably my favorite one, probably the biggest and most influential one that they've ever made. So what they did is that they actually released their own Nintendo Direct and tried to make it look as official as possible. It had the same music, the same animations, the same logos, everything you can think of. They released it on their website, on their YouTube page as well. It just said, you know, the Nintendo Direct for April 1st, 2019. So they titled it in the same way that they title all the other ones. And it works for them because they also release Nintendo Directs when those Directs come out. They talk about them. It's on their website. So I'm sure that plenty of people go to IGN and maybe that's the first time they find out about a Nintendo Direct. So that's why it works so well for them to be imitating the Direct nature and then posting it on their website. But here's the fun part, right? The Direct proceeds to be like a wet dream for us Nintendo fans. Every major Zelda, pretty much, was getting announced as having a Switch port in succession. First, you got Ocarina of Time 3D coming to the Nintendo Switch, Wind Waker HD coming to the Nintendo Switch, Skyward Sword coming to the Nintendo Switch. And at first, everything seems pretty innocuous. It seems normal, benign. There's nothing crazy about it. It looks and feels exactly like a Nintendo Direct. They're just announcing these games that people have been begging for a long time. And as a big Zelda nerd, I was like, oh yes, this is amazing. Although I knew that it wasn't April Fool's, but there was a little part of me that was like, man, I just wish that this could be true. But the joke continues because as the presentation goes on, they keep on ramping up the hilarity, ramping up the craziness until it turns into a haphazard, nonsensical video where they're announcing in rapid succession games like Super Mario 64 and then Half-Life and then Grand Theft Auto 5, Red Dead Redemption 2, Bubsy, Fallout 76, Fallout 77, TurboTax, Carfax. I mean, as the video gets on, it gets crazier and crazier, and then they start announcing games that don't even games and software that aren't games and games that don't even remotely exist. They just start making up fake titles by the end of it. So if you were fooled by it, the idea being if you did go to IGN, you saw the Nintendo Direct, you got hyped up. Because honestly, the funny part about that Nintendo Direct is Nintendo has done April 1st Nintendo Directs before, so it's not really uncommon. You go there, you start off by watching that video saying, this is amazing, this is the best Direct ever. They're announcing all these Zelda games. That's pretty reasonable, and by the time you get to the end there, you're just having a good time. You're just laughing. And that video actually ended up becoming one of the highest trending videos on YouTube for the last day or so. It got really high up there, not just the gaming tab, on the trending tab for all of YouTube was this fake Nintendo Direct by IGN. So those two videos, this is the Direct and Splatoon Island, were my favorite April Fool's jokes. If you haven't checked them out, you totally should. On the second issue for the report, the second story that we're going to be talking about is in February on their Nintendo Direct, the first Nintendo Direct that they had for this year, Nintendo revealed that Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice was coming to the Nintendo Switch. Now, if you don't know anything about that game, and I wouldn't fault you for that, that game is pretty obscure. I actually haven't played that game. It's obscure for Nintendo fans for sure. It's a game made by a developer called Ninja Theory, who at one point was not owned by anyone, but has recently been purchased by Microsoft. And that was actually one of the cool things about this announcement, was that no one really thought, at least I didn't think, that Ninja Theory was going to want to bring their game over to a Nintendo platform when they're fully owned by Microsoft. But Microsoft seems to be making weird decisions these days and seems to be more than willing to share with Nintendo specifically when it comes to their potentially exclusive content. And Hellblade is no different. So that's why a lot of eyeballs are getting onto this game, on top of the fact that Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, people just really liked it. It's a cinematic story style experience. Yes, there is still gameplay and action to be had, but what I hear about it, what I know about it, is that it's just more of an experiential type thing. You want to go in there, you probably don't want to know anything about it, and you just want to learn what that story is because it leaves a lasting impression. It's a good game in that way, and it's significant again because Ninja Theory is owned by Microsoft, and now Microsoft is bringing these games over, Hellblade being one of them, Cuphead being another that's coming out in April. Well, the news that we learned yesterday was that Hellblade is also coming out in April 11th to be exact. That's just over a week away. That's before Cuphead, which I think comes the week after in April. So this is a lot of content coming from Microsoft. I don't know if Microsoft themselves are publishing Hellblade and Cuphead, but at the very least, Microsoft is allowing it to happen. It's going to be a digital-only experience, and the price is set at a reasonable $29.99, considering that the game released in around August of 2017. That's pretty cool that it's half price than what it was originally, and I think it won a lot of awards that year. If anything that I've said so far, including the fact that yes, it was for a lot of people one of their favorite games of 2017, make sure to check that out next week. For the third story on the report, finally, this Persona 5 craziness could potentially hopefully come to an end at the end of April. What am I talking about? Well, in December, here's your recap. Persona 5's main protagonist, Joker, was shown off at the Video Game Awards to say he's coming to the Nintendo Switch in terms of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. He's going to be the first third-party character to join as an update DLC later next year. Everyone started talking about, hey, if Joker's coming and he's from Persona 5, is Persona 5 making its way on the Nintendo Switch? Atlus, the publisher of the Persona franchise, started teasing that they have news, and then they said, hey, we have this game called Persona 5 but it's a PS4 exclusive, and everyone got sad again because they're just like, wait, what do you mean? Well, they didn't say it was exclusive. They just said it was for PS4, and that's all they said. So everyone's like, well, okay, is this coming to the Switch? Is this not coming to the Switch? And then they talked more about Persona 5R, and they said, well, no, we're still sticking with this narrative that it's a PS4 game. We're not confirming or denying that it's on any other platform. And again, people were just like, well, it's definitely not coming. Or other people are saying, no, I'm sure that it is coming, and this has been happening for the past 3 months or so. Then there were domain purchases. There were rumors talking about another Persona game called Persona 5S. Again, we don't know what these are. We don't know if these are like remasters or spin-off titles. We don't know anything. Atlus has kind of been teasing us. They've been putting us on a hook for the past few months about what these games even are, if these games even exist, especially Persona 5S, and if they do, what platforms are they coming on? And for Nintendo fans, it's been frustrating because we know Joker is coming, but we don't know if anything else is. What should we expect from Atlus? Well, what we know for sure, what the news is that yesterday, I believe, or within the last 2 days, an official website for Persona 5S is now live. So it is confirmed that Persona 5S exists and Persona 5R exists, and it's also confirmed that Persona 5R is for the PS4. We don't know if it's only for the PS4, but it is at least on the PS4. We don't know anything about Persona 5S, but on that website, they claim that they will finally be sharing information about not only S, but R on April 25th. They will reveal these games once and for all by the end of April. Thank goodness, we've been waiting so long. We've been speculating for so long. It'll be nice to know, even if they're just going to deny the fact that it could be coming to the Switch. So that's okay. I just want to get the narrative over. And if you look at the time period, April 25th, the end of April, is also pretty much when you should expect to hear about the next Smash Brothers game. Not hear about it, actually. Okay, sorry. I said that wrong. The end of April is when you should expect to be playing the next big Smash Brothers update. Okay, that spring 3.0 update is supposed to be coming in April. I would assume the second half of April, and they would spend the first half of April at one point in time having some sort of direct where they said, hey, this is what's coming to Smash. This is what's all about this 3.0 update. And hey, Joker will be available at the same time. That's what I'm speculating, which would mean that the actual update would come at the second half of April, and that would be really cool, and it would tie in nicely with what Atlus is doing, with what Nintendo is doing, if they kind of sync it together and say, okay, Joker arrives in Smash, the 3.0 update, all's happening at this one point in time at the end of April. And to go along with that, Persona 5S, let's say, is coming out for the Nintendo Switch. At least that's what I'm hoping for. All we know is that we're going to finally know what 5S and 5R are about on April 25th, and I really want this to be real. I really want Persona 5S to come to the Nintendo Switch because it is one of the best JRPGs from this past console generation. So many people love Persona 5, and I want to be able to play that on the go. It seems like a perfect fit for a handheld console to be able to play such a elongated game that a lot of people have been playing for like 80 plus hours just to get to the end of the campaign. I don't want to do that all sitting down in front of my TV. I mean, I want to be able to take that with me. So, okay, I'm done talking about Persona. We are going to find out something about it on April 25th. And this last story sheds some light on a potential gameplay mechanic making a return within the new Pokemon game set to release at the end of this year. Of course, I'm talking about Pokemon Sword and Shield, and the mechanic I'm referring to is the capturing mechanic that was very prevalent in the Let's Go games that launched in November of last year. Now, as stated in an article on nintendosoup.com, last year, Nintendo released an accessory called Pokeball Plus alongside Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. This accessory could be used as a controller for the game and even as a way to play Pokemon Go. So they released that accessory, this Pokeball Plus. It looks exactly like a Pokeball. It has a joystick on it so that you can actually mimic the capturing mechanic or the capturing throw of a Pokemon game while you play the game. So when you go into a random battle encounter in Let's Go Pikachu or Let's Go Eevee, they removed the battling system for that game in favor of capturing in the same vein as Pokemon Go. And what this Pokemon Go or this Pokemon Plus controller let you do, this little Pokeball that you held in your hand, is that you could literally make a throwing motion and you would throw a Pokeball in the game. That's what made it so cool, was that you could feel like you were actually there throwing a Pokeball at the Pokemon in order to capture them. Now, we all thought that this mechanic was actually taken out of Pokemon Sword and Shield, because when we saw the initial direct, they had random encounters. It did not seem like they were utilizing the same feature that they had before. But the news that Nintendo Soup is reporting on goes as follows. Now, it seems that the Pokeball Plus might have some use outside of Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee and Pokemon Go, Pokemon Sword and Shield. This is because French distributor WT&T has put up 4 product listings on their wholesale database. 2 of the listings are for the standard editions of Pokemon Sword and Shield. The other 2 are for unannounced Pokeball Plus bundles packaged with Pokemon Sword and Shield. So I looked at the listings. They say Pokemon Sword, Pokemon Shield, and then they have bundles that say Pokemon Shield with Pokeball Plus, Pokemon Sword with Pokeball Plus. It's pretty concrete there. I mean, they may have made a mistake in writing those, but in terms of just looking at it, it's hard to misunderstand the meaning of what I'm seeing there. On top of the fact that this kind of goes along with the Best Buy ad I was talking about on Monday. Of course, I was talking about how the Best Buy ad had a Joker render in there that we hadn't seen before, another Persona reference for you guys. But it also said that you can pre-order Sword and Shield, and right next to it was a picture of the Pokeball Plus saying you can buy this game, buy this accessory while you're there. And I didn't think much about it because I was like, well, okay, they could just be trying to sell that accessory. Maybe they made a mistake. Maybe they didn't know at the time that accessory doesn't go along with Sword and Shield. But I'm starting to connect the dots here. I'm starting to see that maybe that's the case, and it would make a whole lot of sense that this accessory would be available with Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield, because why go through all this trouble to make a Pokemon controller accessory and know in your hearts that when you release it in November that you're going to have another Pokemon game releasing a year later and have it not be compatible with that game? That seems silly to me. I mean, it's the way smarter move to say, no, it is accessible with that game, so we can sell even more Pokemon Plus accessories the next year when Pokemon Sword and Shield comes out. And if that is the case, and if it's so compatible that they're willing to bundle it together, meaning that it's going to be more useful than just the joystick on it. Like, I would assume that the only reason why you would want to bundle it together was that you could use every single feature set on that Pokemon Ball Plus, including the throwing mechanic, right? It would seem ludicrous to me that you would bundle Pokemon Sword and Shield with a Pokeball Plus if you didn't make use of the throwing mechanic in some way, shape, or form. We don't know what that could mean. So assuming that this news is right, then we might find that there is indeed a way to access the capturing mechanics of Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee in Pokemon Sword and Shield. Don't know exactly what that means. Don't know exactly how that's going to play into the overall game structure of that. Like, can you switch between one mode where you're battling and one mode where you're capturing on the fly? I'm not sure, but either way, it makes me incredibly excited about it, because I, for one, really enjoyed Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. I think there are so many trainers available in Pokemon games. Like when I play Pokemon Sun and Moon, I run into so many trainer battles that I don't necessarily need to have more battling opportunities in the grass. Just give me trainers for battling and grass for capturing. I was totally cool with that concept in Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. I just think they dumbed it down a little too bit when you compare it to the mainstream generational games. But that's what this game's all about. That's what Sword and Shield is all about. It's for the people who want the more hardcore Pokemon experience, but I was hoping that they would carry some over from Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. So this news excites me. Again, we don't know what this means. It could mean a whole bunch of things, but at the very least, it's likely that the Pokeball Plus accessory, which allowed you to throw Pokeballs in Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, will be compatible in some way with Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield when they release later this year. And that's your show for April 3rd. It's the Wednesday show. Thank you so much for joining me. If you want to talk to me, comment about the show, whatever it is, ask a question, you can go to heartcontainerspodcast.gmail.com. You can go to my Twitter, which is at RomeFawaz. That's ROMEFAWAZ, and talk to me there. Otherwise, this has been Heart Containers. Thank you so much for joining me today, and make sure you tune in for the last show of the week on Friday.